Hi there, I'm Annie and welcome to Historically Fashioned and my first ever video on this channel. So I thought since this was my first video, I would take the opportunity to kind of introduce myself and kind of go over, I guess, my vision for where I want this channel to go or what I want it to be. And to do that, I have come up with 10 questions to kind of do those things. Some of these questions I pulled from some of the videos from the Cozy 2020 this year, or no, excuse me, Cozy 2021. And some of them are just some that I have come up with on my own. So I have right here my bodice that I'm working on. I'm currently working on the Black Snail 0420 to 1890s day bodice blouse. I started this a little while ago. This is actually going to be my entry into the Foundations Revealed 2022 competition. So yeah, I guess we'll just dive into these questions. I have them written down because I am old and can't remember things. And yeah, they're on paper because again, I'm old. So I guess we'll just start with the first one, which is how long have you been sewing or costuming? So I have been sewing and costuming off and on for about 20 years. I did learn to sew about 20 years ago when my daughter was about 2. But I haven't been sewing all of that time. I did take a pretty substantial break, unfortunately, from the craft, really for several reasons. Space, motivation was the biggest one, because I do prefer to sew historical garments or historically inspired garments. I found that I was spending a lot of time and energy and money on things that I couldn't actually wear places because I just didn't have time to go to events or money to go to events, whatever reasons that I couldn't go. So I was spending a lot of time and money on something that I didn't get to wear, and frankly that was sad and a little depressing. So I stopped sewing for a while. I decided, I guess, this summer that I was frankly tired of my everyday modern clothing and wanted to just wear what I wanted to wear. So that's what I do now. I started sewing my own wardrobe that is, Edwardian, Victorian inspired. And yeah, I haven't worn regular, everyday, normal clothes outside of the house since October. And I think I am much happier for it. Moving along, who taught you to sew? So I was taught to sew originally by my mom. My mom sewed all of my life. But I was never really interested in it as a little kid, probably 8 or 9 or something. I did try my hand at making some Barbie clothes and wasn't super successful. So really didn't touch the sewing machine or needle and thread again until my daughter was about 2 years old, when she wanted to be the Wicked Queen, as she put it, from Snow White. I could not find a Wicked Queen costume, so decided, how hard can it be? I'll make my own. My mom showed me the basics of how to use a sewing machine, how to cut out a pattern, and I took myself down to Joann's and very, very stupidly purchased a bunch of polyester satin and polyester taffeta and proceeded to muddle my way through making her a little Wicked Queen costume, which despite its wonky color, I think turned out rather cute. But I was kind of hooked from there and really was enjoying being able to make things that I wanted to make. And so I did take a couple of classes at the JC, the local JC, to learn a little bit more about sewing in general, because like I said, my mom was a very utilitarian sewist. She did not finish her seams. She didn't do a lot of things. It was basically just down and dirty, get the job done. Her fitting, she never really mastered fitting or anything like that. So those classes definitely helped with that. And yeah, and I think my sewing is better for it. All right, so the next question I have is, why did you start this channel? That there is the big one, I guess. I started this channel for a few reasons. The main reason being that I did not wish to go completely bonkers. Last week, which would be the 1st of February, Tuesday, day that will live in infamy in my mind forever, I was, for the first time ever in my entire life, started working when I was 14 years old, laid off from my job. I did sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I cannot say anything. Let's just say I was very displeased. Very displeased. Anyways, I figured out real quick that I was going to go absolutely bonkers and insane if all I did all day long was sit around and look at the job boards. So while I do check every day and look at things every day and work on finding a new job every day, I decided, well, let's get some sewing done, shall we? And why not document the process? I had some grand plans for this year. Those plans, for the foreseeable future, at least until I get a new job, will have to change a little bit because I will not be able to go out and purchase a lot of fabric and notions and such. The occasional purchase is still in the budget, but I can't do what I used to do. Luckily, I do have some things squirreled away so I can work on some projects that I would like to get done. So I thought, why not document the process of pretty much, sewing through my stash. I will be doing a lot of stash sewing for the foreseeable future, and it's also a way to keep myself motivated and keep myself busy doing something other than feeling sorry for myself. So yeah, here I am. Next up, do you pick a project, then procure materials, or do you collect materials and let them speak to you? So as you can probably guess, since I said I'm going to be sewing through my stash, I tend to buy things because I like them and then go from there. So I will keep them until a project comes up that says, hey, this fabric would be perfect for me. I do occasionally purchase, fabric specifically for a project. I do have, some really pretty black wool that I purchased specifically because I'm going to make a walking skirt and probably either a matching jacket or a matching vest, depending on how much I wind up with left over. Same with some brown wool that I've already turned into a walking skirt, but have, enough left to make either a vest or a jacket, I think. So yeah, I tend to buy things to keep them around until they say, hey, I would like to be a walking skirt, or I would like to be this day bodice. Yeah, so that's my process there, I suppose. Moving on. Do you drape, draft, use commercial patterns? Yes to all three. Like I said, I did take a drafting class, a flat pattern class, and I did take a draping class. My draping skills are sadly lacking. I think if I had an actual sloper that actually fit me these days, I think that flat patterning is something that kind of, I don't know, it sticks with you a little bit more. The mechanics of it aren't quite as, I think, complex as draping, as much as I really actually do enjoy draping more than flat patterning. I'm way out of practice and my lady is not like me anymore. I also like to use the drafting systems, like the historical drafting systems. So I have all of the Francis Grimble, I think I have all of the Francis Grimble books. I have quite a collection of Francis Grimble books, which include, patterns from the day, along with the drafting instructions and the drafting scales. So I do like those. Of course, I have, what is it called? The Keystone jacket and dress cutter. I've got stays and corsets. I've got quite a library of books that include patterns. So I do like to use those and, you know, size them up to my size as well. As far as commercial patterns go, I don't typically sew from Big Three patterns just because I've never had much luck with them. As far as sizing and stuff goes like that, they're just, I don't know, they're just not my jam, but I do like a lot of the indie patterns. Obviously, I use Black Snail quite often, Truly Victorian. I have a few others as well, but most of my patterns are Black Snail, Truly Victorian. As far as like Elizabethan stuff, that kind of stuff, I'm a huge fan of Margot Anderson. I think her patterns are incredible. They're incredible teaching tools. Absolutely love those. Can't recommend those enough. Next up, let's see. Do you pin parallel or perpendicular to your seams? Again, my answer to that is yes, I actually do both depending on what it is that I am doing. If I want something to be super precise, I will go ahead and pin perpendicular. No, excuse me, I'll go ahead and pin parallel. So I can pin that seam line exactly and not have to worry about it shifting and stuff. I do not sew over my pins, so I do take them out as I go. So there's that. So I don't ever have to worry about running over my pins with my machine. What have I done here? I managed to lose my stitching line. There we go. As far as pinning perpendicular, if I am doing something that doesn't need to be super precise, straight lines, you know, small curves, facings, well, facings you have to be pretty precise on, but, you know, things like that, I will go ahead and pin parallel as well. I also do a lot of basting. I have found that basting is your friend. I used to honestly be way too lazy to baste and thought it was a waste of time, but I have since learned through many sad events that, yeah, if you want something to be spot on perfect, baste it first. It's definitely worth the time. It's definitely worth the effort. So yeah, I kind of do all three. And yeah, okay, moving on. I kind of stink at this. We'll see if I get any better. Moving on, what is my favorite tool to use? So if I'm allowed to say my sewing machine, I'm going to say my sewing machine. I have this beautiful antique white rotary sewing machine. This machine is from about 1904. White machines are a little bit more difficult to date than Singer's because they don't have that amazing database. So going off the patents listed on the stitch plate, this is probably from about probably 1905 is what I'm thinking, just because that's the last patent date. So between 1905 and 1907, and I love it. I found that sewing with a treadle has really like slowed me down and allowed me to improve my sewing techniques. I tend to be, like I said, a pretty lazy sewist, and I have found that with my modern machines, I tend to want to go super fast and just be done. Whereas with the treadle machine, there's a whole rhythm to it, and there's just something about sewing on a treadle that is delightful. I do use my modern machines for buttonholes because I cannot be fussed to hand sew a buttonhole. I'm gonna be honest. My buttonholes are lousy, so the machine can do a much better job at that than I can. So we let the machine do that, and I also use my serger quite heavily. While I love the aesthetics of Victorian clothing, I love sewing on my Edwardian era machine. I like the finish that a serger gives because, again, lazy. If I can avoid a French seam, I will avoid a French seam. If I can avoid whipping down a seam, I will avoid whipping down a seam. So yeah, if I can't say my sewing machine, I will have to say my iron. My iron is nothing fancy. It is just a Rowenta, you know, steam iron. Not a super fancy thing at all. However, I find that while I hate to actually iron things, I do like to press things. Giving your projects a good press while in process really improves the look of your finished product. Again, this is something I did not learn from my mom, who did not ever press a seam. So yeah, either my sewing machine or my iron. Next up is, what project taught you the most? So besides my daughter's little Wicked Queen costume, which taught me that sewing with polyester satin is really not a great idea if you'd like to keep your sanity, especially when you've never sewn before. Aside from that, I would have to say my Elizabethan ensemble, which I made using those Margot Anderson patterns. If you have never seen a Margot Anderson pattern, you are missing out. It was, let's see, I think the third project I tackled. So I tackled my daughter's little Wicked Queen outfit. Then I made myself a Renaissance costume, which was really bad, out of stretch penne velvet and some kind of polyester jacquard nonsense. And decided, no, we don't like this. It wasn't quite what I was going for. And so I decided I was going to sew myself an Elizabethan ensemble, complete with stays, farthingale, the whole deal. So from the skin out, this was my third project. And let me tell you, those Margot Anderson patterns, they're highly, highly recommend. 10 out of 10. You know, really 20 out of 10. They are amazing. The manual is massive and taught me so much about sewing. Taught me, about kind of even goes into like the history of the clothing. It goes into it has modern methods as well as more historical methods. So if you are looking for kind of Renaissance era, Tudor, Elizabethan, she's got some Italian stuff out now, I highly, highly recommend Margot's patterns. They are incredible. I learned so much. Like I said, I made a pair of bodies, a pair of stays, and they fit. It was, yeah. So I think that is definitely the project that taught me the most, and probably the project that I am most proud of, just because it was so involved and I actually managed to make something that I could wear and something that fit properly. It was the first garment that actually fit me. So definitely, if you're in the market for, Renaissance kind of stuff, Venetians, Tudor, go for that. Go for those. Highly recommend. They're expensive, but well worth the price. Let's see. Next up, what era would you still like to costume? So I have to say probably Regency. I adore the Regency era. I know a lot of people don't. They think it's boring, or they think that the silhouette isn't flattering. I love it. I think that it is so elegant and so beautiful. There's just something about that columnar shape of gown that I find to be beautiful, and I love them. Certainly easy to wear, at least they seem like it, but for some reason I have just never gotten there. I just haven't. I did make for my draping, when I was taking my draping class, my final project was the 1820s archery gown from the V&A. And I did make a pair of Regency short stays, but I have never made a proper Regency just gown. The 1820, that's a little late, where you start to get, heavier fabrics and all of that. So I really would like to make myself just some beautiful Regency gowns. I feel like they do translate well to wearing today as modern kind of clothing. Clearly I'm perfectly happy wearing what I'm wearing, which I don't think I said. This is the black snail sport blouse, but I chose to make it in super fun skeleton cat fabric because why not? Yeah, so I think Regency is definitely a period that I would like to delve more into. Next up is the last question, and that is, what are your plans moving forward? So my plans moving forward have had to shift a little bit just because, yeah, no job. But we do still hopefully plan to go to Disney World this summer. So my plan was to make myself a historically inspired Disney bounding wardrobe. So I wanted to make, different outfits based on, characters, but make them more Victorian Edwardian, like riding sporting outfits, just because that's what fits into my current everyday wardrobe is Victorian Edwardian stuff. So the plan was to make a lot of split skirts, a lot of bicycle length skirts, a lot of blouses, a lot of corset covers as outerwear kind of stuff. And make them, in colors and things that would draw from, Disney characters. Unfortunately, things like that are going to have to change. I do have some fabric in my stash to get started with some of that stuff, but unless, the job situation changes, I may have to change some of those plans. But I do still plan to do that. I spoke a little bit earlier about how I would like to sew through my stash. So I definitely have some things that I can work on. I do have quite a few things in my closet over here and in my Kellex units over here that I can work on in the meantime. I'm saying an awful lot. And I think that's really it. I do want to make a lingerie dress. I actually have fabric for that. So I actually bought the fabric. It's IKEA curtains. I bought them for to make a Regency out of, but I think I'm actually going to turn them into a lingerie dress. And I do have some vintage eyelet fabric as well that I can use for a lingerie dress. In my closet back here, I have I collect like vintage lace and stuff. I'm very lucky to have like an op shop that is focused exclusively on sewing and crafting supplies near me. So I get a lot of, stuff there secondhand and vintage, which is awesome, for a really great price. So I guess that's my plans for this year and my plans for this channel. Things will change. Like I said, I am currently working on this bodice. I probably won't vlog this because I'm not halfway. I'm about a third of the way done. And I've already finished the skirt for this outfit and have actually worn it a couple of times. So I probably won't vlog this process. But I do need to get started on a few other things. So I guess I will start with those. I also forgot to mention earlier that one of the things I did want to kind of touch on in this channel is I have a fairly extensive collection of antique delineator magazines, as well as a few bound yearly volumes of the Godey's Ladies magazine. So I would actually probably like to share some of those things with you and do some flip throughs of those magazines. Just because like I said, I do have them, and I feel kind of bad keeping them all for myself. They just kind of stay boxed up so that they don't get destroyed. And I also have a decent sized collection of extant garments. So I probably like to showcase some of those on my channel as well. Most of them are bodices. I guess a combination of bodices and lingerie dresses, I'm a little obsessed. So I would like to probably, you know, showcase those as well. I don't have a mannequin that fits on them. Purchasing one right now is not in the cards, and I also just don't have space for it. My space here is pretty small and I don't have room for another mannequin. So I'm not sure how I'll show those, you know, like you know, like someone wearing them, but I definitely like to go through them and go over construction and all of that stuff when it comes to those garments. So I guess that's it for today. I'm going to go ahead and sign off and continue working on this bodice. I hope you did enjoy today's video. I hope that if you did, you will subscribe, hit the like button down below, and tune in for my next video. I don't yet have a schedule set. I will probably upload just once a week, maybe twice a week if I do like a flip through or something like that, but probably just once a week. I haven't decided what day of the week that's going to be yet. But yeah, those are my plans. Thanks for hanging out with me today. It was great to like just kind of talk about some of this kind of stuff, and hopefully I will see you guys here for my next video. Bye.